Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's 2:20 a.m. UK time or Celtic Park time. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I am delighted to be joined by Chris McAway. And thanks everybody for joining us on the pre-match and at half-time. We finished the game up 4-0 winners. Could have been more, Chris. Could have been more in that second half.
Absolutely, it certainly could be. It's funny because the more you think Mikey Johnson changes, the more he stays the same. I think, well, there you go. That sums it up. I thought again, second half. I thought early on in the second half with the changes, I thought it was going to disrupt the momentum, but actually we saw again some pretty good performances there. A couple of good moments. Thought Holm came in and did pretty well again, which was nice to see. Yang won as a penalty, looked up for it. Attitude levels looked better. Got to see, more importantly, got to see a new keeper as well, Sonny Sattler, which was excellent. I have to say, we interesting moment where I thought Kobayashi put him under a wee bit of unnecessary pressure, a bit of a heavy pass back on a bad pitch, and I thought actually the boy on a couple of occasions he looked pretty comfortable and assured with the ball at his feet, which is a good thing for the way we like to play. So yeah, good for him to get a wee run out. Probably, what I'd say the second half was more efficient than the first half. But I mean, James Forrest. What can you say? The evergreen James Forrest. I mean, he just came in and looks as though he just played last week. I certainly hope of all our really dedicated fans, our Celtic fans that have stayed up to watch this. I kind of hope Steve Clark might have sat up to watch that game there and maybe had a wee pang of regret that he had, a player that I think could have been a game changer for us in the Euros, sat on the bench twiddling his thumbs. You see again tonight, he's still going to, I think, have a part to play in our season going forward. So yeah, interesting watch. I enjoyed it. I would say enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first half more, but I thought the second half was pretty good.
Interesting discussion point on Forrest, which we'll definitely have. But I'm going to open this one up from a comment made here by Ryan Ashby. Ryan is talking about Mikey Johnson, and you're telling me that I'm a massive supporter of MJ. Right, I'd love to see you defend that cameo. Right, okay. But we live in this world where information's put out there, Ryan, but it's not always right, is it? Because I'll refer you to a wee blog I wrote last pre-season of all the players that I would like to see leaving Celtic, and Mikey Johnson was on that list. I then did another one which I've shared on the Acsom bulletin on a number of occasions, and I've just had a wee look at there. He's still on the list. That's 2 pre-seasons in a row. I would move Mikey on. I support every Celtic player, every player wearing a Celtic jersey, but I don't agree with that comment, Ryan. I have been saying for the last 7 pre-seasons that Mikey Johnson's a guy who's in the last chance saloon. But seeing as you brought him up, he scores a goal in the second half, could have had a hat-trick. He's missed a penalty, but it wasn't really that for me. It was more to do with the same old situations that we find ourselves in with Mikey, where you're just thinking to yourself, right, find your man, take on your man, beat the defender with a wee bit of strength, and we're not seeing the improvement. And I was looking at the shape of him physically, thinking to myself, he does look as though he's maybe bulked up a bit. And I know that obviously he spent the second half of last season down south. He has he broke into the international team when he was on loan over in Portugal. Listen, we could talk about this next season, the season after that, and the season after that. Mikey Johnson's never going to be an effective player for Celtic. I've said it before, Chris, and it's not an opportunity to have a dig at the guy. If we could use him as a make-weight for the Adam Ida deal, I would do. Do you think Brendan Rodgers is of the same state of mind in relation to someone like Mikey Johnson, someone like UK Kobayashi, who you've already mentioned, players who we thought already had one leg out the door, yet they're part of this pre-season tour of America? Surely Rodgers doesn't see them as part of the squad moving into next season. Lagerbielke, I'll throw him in there as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, first of all, let me just say, welcome to Acsom, Ryan Ashby, because given some of your comments during the half-time, you're clearly not a regular listener, and I'll leave it at that. But everybody's welcome, and thanks for staying up and watching the game with us. No, you're right. I mean, look, Mikey Johnson, how many breakthrough seasons is this guy going to have? Look, he's went down to West Brom on a loan and he's done well down there and he's rightly got praise and recognition for that. But what I saw again tonight from Mikey Johnson, goal aside, and he didn't just miss the penalty, he missed at least 2 gilt-edged chances as well. But what I saw in his overall play tonight was a player who might have evolved physically, might have bulked up, as you say. He has not improved his football intelligence, not one bit. At no point when he was making runs, when he was on the ball, when he was in possession, was he looking up to try and pick out a player. He was just like, this is a Mikey Johnson show, time to go and try and get a hat trick. And for a guy now who's no longer a young player, and we spoke about the young guys in the first half showing maturity, I didn't see any maturity for Mikey Johnson there. As soon as the penalty was over, as soon as the penalty was awarded, he was right over trying to get the ball. It's like, why not give that to one of the younger players? Why not give that to one of the guys who's maybe not scored or who's given on for a cameo? You know, show a wee bit of, I don't know, just a wee bit of intelligence on that park, and I didn't see it. So, no, Mikey Johnson for me, and I don't know what Brendan thinks of him. I think Brendan's pretty pragmatic and will look at giving everybody an opportunity to come in and show what they can do. But no, as a supporter, I'm not interested in seeing Mikey Johnson at the club anymore. I like you. I don't want to have a go at the player. I just think you've had more chances than probably any Celtic player I can think of in recent memory. It's time to move on. The best thing and the most effective thing Mikey Johnson can do for Celtic now is to either act as a makeweight for a player that will come in and improve our squad, or get us a decent transfer fee that we can reinvest in improving the squad. So that's my view on Mikey Johnson. Kobayashi or Lagerberg, for me, it was just cameos. I think he's either putting him in a shop window or he's just trying to utilise the squad so that he's not necessarily having to put at risk players who will come in and play a meaningful part of this season. Lagerberg's not in Rodgers' plans. That's been evident for the best part of a season. And Kobayashi, I mean, to be honest, there was nothing I saw tonight that told me that he's a player that's ready to make the step up and be a first team regular. So no, all three for me can go.
So you're trying to tell me that the central defensive partnership of Kobayashi and Lagerberg is not here to stay, Chris. I would be a wee bit concerned if we lined up against Kilmarnock for the first game of the season and those two names were on it. Listen, again, I'll go back to it. I'll reiterate this. Anybody who pulls on that Celtic jersey will get my full support. But I do have an opinion on our strongest team. I also have an opinion on guys that I think I would consider non-contributing players who should leave the club. And that list grew, actually, this pre-season compared to last year, where I only had 10 on there. And who survived that? Stephen Welsh was on it. He survived it. Liam Scales was on it. You know, you put your hand up and say, I'm wrong. I had Liam Scales on it last pre-season prior to his breakthrough or breakout season, if you like, last year. But I think the rest of them were the typical guys that you thought had to move on. David Turnbull was on it. I thought he had to move on, and he did. And this time round, it was guys like Haksabanovic, who's away. I did say, should have been on it. There was a few guys on there on loan. But Mikey Johnson, for me, it gets to that point where we could be having the same conversations next year again. It gets to that stage. Yeah. I think he went down there last year to West Brom and he showed what he's got. He showed the undoubted talent and ability that he does possess. But sometimes a player in a club just can't fit. And it could be any number of things. It could be the fact that, the jersey weighs heavy on him. I do think there's sometimes a sense that if things aren't going our way, Mikey's a scapegoat. So he doesn't have any of that baggage if he goes down south. And he really did prove himself last season at that level, championship level. It's a high level. And I do think that if we get an opportunity to move him on, then Brendan Rodgers will take that. I'm really keen to get your thoughts in on the, what time are we at now? Oh my word, it's 2:30 UK time. Here we go. Mackenzie Coyle, good to see you back. Are you saying that Peter Lobel was looking good? Boston Lowell, right. Let's have a wee chat about Boston because he is a player I've been standing up for. like everybody else from afar. I was hearing all about his Fleetwood performances. I was seeing the show reels. I was seeing the highlights clips of him playing for Fleetwood. He was another guy who went away out on loan and performed really well. Probably due to the age of him, I wanted to see him coming back, get a pre-season under his belt, Chris, and then perhaps, and this was something that I'd shared previously, I wanted him to go out on another season-long loan, but at a higher level than the English League One. So maybe Championship level. If we could get him closer to home, you'd probably look to try and get him in the Premiership. You'd probably hope to get him like Kwon went out to St Mirren for a season, so you'd like to keep an eye on him that way. And I was very supportive of him because I thought he played well against Ayr United in Queen's Park. Brendan Rodgers commented the way he commented. He's been subbed on and then subbed back off. I'm not going to read too much into that. I think he wanted to get Turley a wee run out. But he wasn't great for me tonight. I didn't think that Lowell was as commanding as we've seen him.
I think Mackenzie, that brought up the last comment, really summed up the way I viewed Laval tonight. I thought raw is the right word. The last two games I've seen him, I thought he looked a bit more composed. Tonight, whether I don't know, he just thought this is my opportunity to go and try and really drive, or maybe it was just the point in the game where he came on, and I think DC United made a few changes as well. Pitch wasn't great. But it didn't quite come off for him tonight. I thought a couple of times he put in challenges, didn't come off, wasn't very effective on the ball, didn't really assert himself enough on the game. I actually still, there was elements of what he did that I liked, so I want to counterbalance what I'm saying, because I think I like his physical presence, I like his stature, I like the way he moves. He just looks like a player that could hold his own. I think in our league quite easily, whether he's ready to take a step up into European football. But I would definitely say he's ready to play at a higher level than he's been playing. For me, he's right on the fringes of the first team. But there's a bit of polishing that needs to happen with the player. I think he needs to firm up certain parts of his game. And we've got to take into consideration the opposition we were playing against tonight. DC United were not at a level I think we'll expect to see week in, week out, and I mean that with the greatest respect to them. I don't even think that was their full team out, so I'll caveat that as well. But yeah, Lowell, there's a presence there. He's very big, mobile, looks strong. I don't think he would get shoved off the ball too often, but he doesn't have the finesse that I'd expect to see of a first team player in that midfield, I think. And again, we talk about things like maturity, we talk about composure, we talk about intelligence on a football park. I think these are things that maybe another season, whether it's in the top level in Scotland, or as you see Championship level maybe in England, somewhere where he's playing just at that little bit higher level week in, week out, and getting more exposure to playing alongside what I think would be more established players and against more established players would do him the world of good. So for me, if he's not going to get enough minutes this season in the first team, I would get him out on another loan. But I don't think, I wouldn't categorise him in the same way as Mikey Johnson. Mikey Johnson for me has had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity and not taking it. Lowell's not at that stage yet, so I'm hoping that another loan come back, and then we'll be in a position to properly assess him, and the manager will hopefully be able to assess him. But yeah, I'm still keen to see a bit more of him in pre-season. So.
I've been corrected by JGI. Get away with nothing here. I called it UK time. Should have called it Celtic Park time. Thank you for pointing that out. And by the way, it was very much tongue in cheek, Mackenzie. I know, I was just having a dig because nobody says nice things about Peter Lowell in the comment section. And I saw it as an opportunity to say that he was a good guy. Right, here we go. We've got differing opinions on the performance of Odin Thiago Holm. So Celtic follower, for example, comes in and says that he showed potential. We've also got Big Chap 77. Good to see you. Wee Holm looked good. Didn't realise how quick he was. There was that moment in the second half there where that turn of pace where he's absolutely killed the fullback with that turn of pace. I was surprised to see that as well. But elsewhere, we're seeing people saying that Holm didn't look the part. and I'll bring that comment up if I find it. Where do you stand with Holm? Because he was another one like Lowell, and before he left the club, Vata. Sorry, guys, I've mentioned him again. I would have put them all out on loan for a year. I don't think that they would have been getting 20, 25 games in the first team. So I would have put them out on loan to get that experience. And I'm still of that view when it comes to Holm. That's where I am with Holm.
Yeah, he's definitely be on the retain list for me. So he wouldn't be one that I would be looking to have leave the club. I don't think we're seeing enough of him to make a fair assessment on that front. But yeah, I agree with you. I like the elements he's played. I like tonight. I think in every appearance I've seen him so far in the friendlies, he looks quick. He looks up for it. Good appetite. What I would say, maybe just to address the point where people think he wasn't quite as effective, I thought it was an unusual role for Holm tonight, because I noticed at one point in the second half we had Kalmack and Lawal playing kind of deeper, and Holm was the one playing more advanced. And I've always viewed Holm as being the kind of deep line holding midfielder. So whether that's something Rodgers has identified or whether it's just something he's trying out, but I thought the way he chased the ball, I thought his movement was good. Again, you've got to remember this is a guy who's not played a great deal of first team football over the past season, but he did come into the first team on a couple of occasions. He's probably closer to the first team for me than Lawal is at the moment. I would say that, if we could only loan out one and keep another one on the fringes of the team, I'd probably loan Lawal out and I'd keep Holm, because I think Holm, at least in our domestic league, could come in and make an impact, whereas I'm a little bit less sure about Lawal at this point. But I was impressed with him. I thought he did okay tonight. Without being outstanding, I thought he did okay. And I think, again, you have to remember the quality of the pitch, the point in the game that they're coming on, changes all round, different position. There's a lot of factors that can maybe upset the consistency of a player throughout a match, and that could have been a factor.
And the heat as well.
Yeah.
Now, Ian Roy, you've supported the channel, which I've got to thank you for. But can you explain to me, right? And by the way, this is maybe naivety. What is a Movatine? What is it? I might be. What is it?
Ovaltine. I've heard of Ovaltine. I've never heard of Movatine.
Maybe the same thing. Maybe it's something. But Ovaltine would send me to sleep, so maybe it's more of an energy caffeine boost. Let us know, Ian, because it's that time of the day, that time of the morning, actually. We might need something, a wee pick me up now. Tony Cassidy says that he felt Boston was okay tonight, not 5-star. By the way, getting subbed on and getting subbed off is never good, right? And I always think back to the Joe Miller incident. Don't know if you remember it, where we were playing Aberdeen in the Cup, and wee Joe was the sub, right? And Billy McNeil put him on. We should have asked him about this actually when he was on This Is Acsom.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't remember the story. So
yeah, and when Joe came off, he was subbed on, then taken off in the same half, right?
Ouch.
And he went bonkers. He went as he was walking off the park. He was given, I don't know if it was Billy McNeil or anyone who was in the direction of the dugout. He was giving them pelters. And at one point, I thought wee Joe was going to take the jersey off. But it's never good to get subbed on and subbed off. Do you think there's anything in it? I mean, I know there wasn't quite coming together at the end there, Chris, but Lovell seemed a bit gutted to be taken off.
It probably was, because I think for these guys, it is their opportunity to go and play. But I think you've also got to take into account it's a friendly. He's utilising the squad. I think the point you made about Turley, just giving Turley a bit of experience, a wee bit of exposure out there. I wouldn't have said anything, and a game was won, game was over, and the fact, I think rather than Bosun Lawal looking at the fact he was subbed off, he's got to maybe look at the fact that the managers trusted him to play in all three of the games so far in some capacity. Was it a brilliant performance from him tonight? No, it's not. But you could level that at quite a few players in the team. I just think maybe Brendan thought, all right, seen enough from you for tonight, so I'm going to take you off. It's a friendly. It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. I always go back to the 6-2 game in Martin O'Neill's first season, where Bobby Pettit gave Fernando Rickson such a hard time. God rest his soul. gave him such a hard time that Dick Advocaat hooked him. I think in the first half, if I remember right. So
he did.
Yeah. So listen, it can happen to the best players under different circumstances, but I wouldn't read too much on it tonight.
Remember, Doris De Vries was subbed off in the first half under Brendan Rodgers as well. It's the ultimate slap in the face, I would say. Eric says Lawwell on the loan list. I think I'm probably at the same point as Eric at the moment. He was a guy that we brought in, highly rated, 300 grand, I think we paid Watford for him. And Watford gave us that back for VAT. There you go, I've mentioned him again. But Boston Lawwell, he came in very, very highly rated. And I think in terms of his development, he gets a few games under and a few minutes under Ange Postecoglou. He then goes away for that development loan and he used it wisely. He comes back with loads of games in his legs. He's broken into the Ireland, full cap team. Although he never came on, he was on the bench. And I think this is the moment, if he was to absolutely boss every single game in the pre-season, then he gives the manager a decision to make. If he doesn't, then I think that you think, right, another 12 months out the club and go and maybe develop elsewhere. I know that Siegrist, for example, is going away to join Neil Lennon's team over in Romania. And I've said before, as well as having a partnership with Admira Wacker, I do see a benefit in having partnerships with guys like Lenny, Scott Brown, different levels, Chris. And you look at a certain player and think, right, you're maybe 18, let's get you game time, put you out to Ayr United. Or if you're a guy like Lawwell where you need a bit of a step up, put you out to, is it Rapid Bucharesti and see how you can get on with Lenny out there. Because it's clear that Rodgers has got relationships with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can never be a bad thing. We've seen the progression of Lawwell in one season. And look, it's a worthwhile investment. We've brought this guy in, as you say, pretty substantial sum for what is essentially a project player, but obviously he's seen something in him. And I think, he's got certain attributes that I think are really valuable. He's got that height, he's got that, the physique. I mean, he looks like an absolute unit. He really does. But it's about refining those areas where maybe he's not quite, he's not quite up to the mark yet. What I did see tonight, and maybe it goes back to the point I made at half time about Rodgers laying down challenge to these guys. He certainly, was full of running tonight, and he was throwing himself at any things, maybe rashly and recklessly. There was one moment I think he went in to, try and take the ball off a player, and I sort of thought if that had been, proper top European opposition, he's probably given away a free kick, getting a red card, and and is off the park because he went in with such, determination and version, completely missed it. And I thought, oh God, you're not going to get away with that at the top level. So, going back to again Mackenzie's point, he's raw at the moment, and I think to try and take away those raw elements, get him playing regular first team football at a level that's more representative to what we need in our within our club.
Yep. Jade Moffat, welcome to the show. Lawwell needs to go on loan to the Hibs. Well, they're needing some reinforcements after their defeat at Celtic Hearts today. And Francis Leicester, Lawwell not for me. You've got to look at the Eric Cantona about you there, Francis.
If that's, I have to say, if that's Francis, then I don't care what he's saying. I'm going to listen to him.
Oh, absolutely. The two young fullbacks in the first half were excellent. I think that because it's a full-time show, we tend to focus on the second half, but you're right. The first half, the high points for me, obviously, Matt O'Reilly with a couple of goals. I thought Awata played pretty well in the first half, but the two full backs for me were the shining lights. And we were talking at halftime around the fact that sometimes you just need that chance. I mean, when Kieran Tierney got the chance, he wasn't the most highly rated player of his group, his contemporaries, if you like, at Celtic. But when he made that step up, certain players can do it. Certain players can just fit in, and they're fast learners. And I think that when you looked at the two fullbacks, you could tell that the loan deal over in Austria had really, really worked well. And we need to do more of that. And then you look at young Donovan and the fact that he's 17 years of age. I mean, he's not even what you would call a B team player. He's a youth player. And he's come into the side, and I think he's done really, really well. Whether or not they're going to use these guys against Man City and Chelsea, I'm not so sure. But I think that they've definitely made a really good impression tonight, Francis. Thanks for your comment in relation to that. Eric Barron, Lawwell looked exhausted. Hopefully that means he's working hard in training. But I need to bring up Jamesy. Jamesy looked the best of the bunch in the second half, followed by Thiago. Right, let's talk about him then, because at the beginning of the game, I read out what I felt was our strongest 11 when everybody's available. Jamesy Forrest wasn't in that, but we did discuss why. So I had Nicholas Kuhn at right wing. I tell you what, Jamesy Forrest made me change my mind in the second half. Where are we with the right wingers? What's Brendan Rodgers thinking about match day one against Kelly? Who's your first choice right wing? Is it the evergreen James Forrest? He was really sharp tonight.
He was, and listen, I'll praise him to the hilt, but I'm still going to stick with what I've said before on the show. The role I see for James Forrest at the moment, where he can be most effective, is coming in late in games, in the second half, and being that impact player. And he proved that again tonight. I think he's a game changer. I think he's a potential game changer. But I think we've got to be careful about how we utilise him. We're not going to get, 30 plus games out of James Forrest as a starter. We'll burn him into the ground and we'll not do him any favours at all. What James Forrest is bringing to the table for me, and what he brought to the table towards the end of last season, is the intelligence, the game management, the maturity, the experience, the ability to drive those, who don't have that experience and maturity forward and help them elevate their own game. But I thought, again, you saw it tonight, James Forrest coming in against a defence that's played 60 minutes. I don't care who it is in our league in particular, they'll tear them apart. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a tremendously valuable weapon to have in your arsenal. So I'm really really keen to see James Forrest stay at the club. But I also recognise that the role of James Forrest now is not to be the star man, the first team player, but he's actually a guy who comes in, he just does that job when we need it. And listen, I don't mean that to devalue James's contribution in any way, shape or form. I just think that it was so effective towards the end of last season. It was effective again tonight, and I think it's what I call a relief player. A guy who comes in when you need somebody of that quality and that experience to help the team out and do a job. So yeah, Kuhn for me at the moment is still the first choice starter in that team, but James Forrest definitely could get a start in the cups. But for me, he's a 60+ minute substitution that comes on and wins you the game or helps you hold on to whatever lead you've got. That's where I see James Forrest from.
Fair enough. Going back to Ian Roy's point, it is Ovaltine. There was a time, hey, Ian, there might have been the opposite Ovaltine that gave you a wee burst and a wee boost. And we had a few people coming in. Kaiser, Horlicks. Yes, that's it.
There we go. God,
Marquee, it's a mole with titanium claws. Yep, I get it. I absolutely get it. Right, there's another dilemma question I want to ask you about. In my strongest starting 11 on the left-hand side was made. I think most people would agree with that. Most Celtic fans who watched the club last season would certainly agree with it. Tonight we saw Palma and we've seen Yang, neither of whom have completely convinced me. And I think that, Yang, I think technically there are certain parts of his game that look very, very good. There's nothing so far that's going to convince me that he's strong enough, consistent enough, focused enough to be a Celtic winger. Now, I'm not just basing it on the lapse in concentration against Rangers last season, where we were 3-2 up at Ibrox, and he didn't do the basic defending, which was just get your body in front of the angle. The angle, you could see the angle from behind Matondo, was it? And yes, just get in front of him. You block that angle down, make it difficult for the play. He didn't do that. And he was kind of, after that, sent to Siberia, I think, or Coventry by Brendan Rodgers. And I'm watching him tonight. Yeah, the one-on-one stands out, Chris, because he's fluffed his lines. I'm not sure he's got it. And I don't even know if a 12-month loan deal would be the answer. I think if we're going to be ruthless and you're going to sell and you've seen enough, then and people say to me, he's young, you're being harsh on him. If it was a young guy coming through, you wouldn't be saying that. Possibly. And I'm going to throw it out there. Where are you with Yang?
Yeah, I kind of flip-flop back and forwards with Yang. Sometimes I think he looks like he's got something. I don't think I've ever seen him as being a first-choice pick. He's not done anywhere near enough to make me think he's a first-choice pick. So when I'm assessing him, I'm very much assessing him as a squad player. Does he have enough about him at this moment in time to merit a place in what would be our first-team squad? Not our starting 11, but our first-team squad. And I don't think I could confidently say yes on that yet. I think for me, he's got certain things he does very, very well. Like, as you say, the one-on-ones, he's pretty good. Wins a penalty tonight, and we've seen him do those kind of runs before. He's actually very good at getting into the box and getting right to the byline in the box and coming inside, making it hard to get the ball off him. And if he's in that position and he gets tackled and goes down, probably going to win quite a few penalties doing that sort of thing. He makes the defenders have to take a decision, and I quite like that in a player. He does look like a player that when he's on the ball, he's got a wee degree of self-confidence where he thinks, well, I can go on and beat anybody here, and I like that. But again, as we talk about what it means to play at Celtic, you've got to have more than your game. You can't just be a one-trick pony. You've got to have more to your game. And in big moments when we are either under pressure or the game's maybe not going, we're not on the front foot, we're actually on the back foot, you need players that can adapt their style of play in their game to contribute to what the team needs at that point. And I don't know if Yang has that in his game. I don't know if he's the guy that's going to go back and support Greg Taylor, for example. I don't know if he's a player that's going to position himself well on the edge of our box when we're facing a set piece. I don't know if he's a man, as you say, that's going to show an attacking winger onto the weaker side or onto the wrong side. So I think that's my concern with Yang, is that I'm not seeing enough of the other elements of his game outside of his very core role. I'm not seeing enough of the other elements of the game that you really need to have at our club. We need guys who are adaptable, that can raise their game and can do the dirty work as well as the showpiece. So that's my view. So at the moment, I would say no. I'd say he's on the fringes of the first team squad, but he'd be one that's on a shaky peg at the moment.
Yeah, the minute a new winger comes in, you can see him dropping right down the pecking order. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. When's our next game then? I hear you ask. Wednesday night, or is it Wednesday morning? We'll figure that one out, but it's midnight, I believe. We'll figure out on midnight. We'll have a look at that nearer the time, but we'll certainly be covering it. Before we go, a big shout out and congratulations and well done to young Philip Scorb, who at 16 signed his first professional contract at Celtic, 3-year deal. Philip is a boy who actually came into the studio two and a half years ago with his dad. His dad, Magic's was a PE teacher over in Poland, but they came over here to hopefully get a contract. They came over here knowing that the young boy had talent. He signed for Portobello and can only be described as a goal-scoring machine, right? Yeah. And when I met him, I could see that obviously with his old man's knowledge, training, personal training, conditioning and all that kind of stuff, it was working really well with a kid who was towering above me. Know that I'm that big. And I was watching footage of him. It was unbelievable, actually, the goals he was scoring. And at that point, loads of clubs all over Britain were chasing him. He was invited into Wolverhampton, had a trial down there. He had a trial down at Leeds United. And what was happening was he was 14 and he ended up playing in an under-16 game. First half scored 2 goals, so they took him off and put him onto an under-18 game. For the second half, he scored a couple of goals there as well. The guy was unstoppable. But then what concerned me a wee bit is there was a report in one of the Scottish tabloids that Michael Beale was going to sign him for Rangers. And thankfully, Celtic acted on that and they got him in, and he's just signed his first pro contract. So I'm delighted. Very humble young man from a very humble family, and I'll be keeping a wee eye on him. Hopefully he gets his game time in the B team, and we can see him progressing. He's represented Scotland and Poland at underage levels, so there might be a tug of war. And obviously, when he scores on his debut for the Celtics first team, I will release the interview that I did with him that day, which has never been released on the channel. There you go. Him and his old man.
That'll be a good one to hear. But I think it's brilliant to hear players like that. And, talking to Murdo earlier this week, gave me a new appreciation for somebody coming through at that age and being able to kick off their career. I think the concern is you don't want to have another Ben Doak on your hands, where we have, an absolute undoubted talent, and for whatever reason, we just don't position it or position the club as a place to develop. This players should want to come here. Youngsters should want to come to this club and play their football and develop. But we have to give them a pathway. We've got to give them a route in and show them that actually, that there is going to be a reward for all your hard work. You need to put the hard work in, but there is going to be a reward for it, and it's to come here and build a legacy. And look, it's like we said before, players will move on. The best players will move on because they have to. In today's climate, and financial constraints, they have to. But let's give them an opportunity into the first team. Give them the chance to go and attract the interest of big clubs, but in a way that benefits the club as well, whether it's benefiting us on the pitch and then further down the line financially when we get a representative transfer fee for them. So, but yeah, in his case, good luck to the boy. I wish him nothing but the best and look forward to seeing him in the first team.
We will watch with interest. Listen, commitment for you. It's 3 a.m. Thank you all for getting involved in the chat. Big shout out to all our overseas listeners. It might be morning time for you over there. I really enjoyed that tonight. 4-0, could have been more. The hardest working man in showbiz is Double Denim. It's Chris McElwain. There he is. So you go for a well-deserved break, my friend, and I'll catch up with you when you're back. Thanks everybody for getting involved, and thank you once again, Chris McElwain, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Pleasure.